So it's nice. I just want to make a quick comment. I know the folks that are dialed in already. It's nice to see a lot of the names. So thank you for joining. As CEO of SEP Software Corporation here in North America, really take pride in working with SEP AG in our latest release. It's nice to see a lot of the same names that we've seen for a number of years. So a few of you probably haven't seen me for some time. So if you see the change, of course, a little bit of difference, but that's the world we live in. Lucas, let's go ahead and get started and go to the next slide if you don't mind. Perfect. So as I mentioned, good morning to everybody. Jaglion is 5.0 and very exciting, a major release for us. Great roll up. Of course, here on the video with us is Klaus Rehm. Thank you, Klaus, for joining today from Germany.
Thank you, Russell.
Good to see you. Klaus has been with SEP AG for some time, where the software is developed. And for all of you that are on the webinar today, know that, if any time that we've had an escalation issue or bug fix or something that need to be worked on together, Germany is, of course, behind us from a support and service standpoint. Today, as we do the presentation, I did drop a note in the chat. Good morning to Rick, as he said, good morning to all. But I want to make sure that if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat window. We will be having a discussion, some questions. So we'll do a little presentation of what's new, what's going on, and then we'll go into a live demo to show you actually the new features if you haven't upgraded today. We've also had a few questions already come in as we got ready to announce this webinar and this presentation. So, we'll get through them all. And then if there are some technical questions that you folks have, and I know there's a lot of them potentially, we can set up one-on-ones with both you as the end user or, the value-added reseller that's here. So today this is a webinar for the channel here in North America and end users as well. Let's go to the next slide, please, Lucas. So, something as we look at here, SEP Sesam, the product itself is a hybrid backup solution. It's both physical, virtual, and over the past few years, we have really made strides in the cloud. If we go back to Tigon, Growler, of course, Beefalo, and now Jaglion, that's exciting. So it is 5.0. With that, it gets a little exciting when you have a major roll up and release, but Klaus will talk more about that. And, as you look at the hybridization, I'm sure you'll see and appreciate the features that we've improved in both our deduplication from a performance standpoint and in our S3 connection. And we continue to move towards the cloud. Next slide. And this is where I'm going to turn this over to Klaus. But one of the questions that came through from a few customers, just to interject here real quickly, Klaus, before I turn this over to you, is to say, why should I update is important, but how do I update? It's one of the critical questions people are asking. If you'd like assistance updating, it's a real simple way to submit a support ticket or reach out to us on the phone or email, and we'll get that scheduled to give you some assistance to get up to the latest and greatest release. So with that, I'm going to be quiet now, turn this over to Klaus. Thank you very much, Klaus, and take it away. And maybe tell the world, since this is probably the first time a lot of folks have heard from yourself, maybe tell the folks here in North America a little bit about yourself, Klaus.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm really proud to be here in this session, and I would like to give everybody a warm welcome here from Germany. And I have to talk about Jaglion, which is definitely a really cool topic. And I'm just about preparing a YouTube video full of live demonstration to present all the major features in live demo. I will also show you some live demo later on, but to show all the features in a live demo takes much more and would really go beyond our scope of time. So, well, I'm with SEP already 7 to 8 years, I guess. So I'm in the pre-sales area, and I have this kind of sales approach as well as some technical background, working together with the development guys. So if you have some technical questions, if I do not the answer by hand, then I can go and get it for you, of course, yes. So the question was, why should I update to Jaglion? And well, there are a whole bunch of reasons, of course. There are some new features, but not everybody is interested in the new features. For instance, our new supported agent for Nutanix AHV. If you do not have a Nutanix appliance, then you don't need this new feature. However, there are a lot of enhancements for already existing functionalities, especially pretty common functionalities, which I would guess almost or most of the customers are using already today, like our software integrated deduplication. We have revised and reworked on this deduplication, so everybody will see and feel the difference in performance, quality optimization, and so on. And we will talk about this later on. And performance is more kind of a general topic. I have a separate slide on this, therefore, because it's not only for the deduplication, it's also for tape, it's for purging, and much more. And we will talk about this in a second. Then we have some security topics, like the restructuring of our authentication and authorization. This is definitely a security topic. And then we have exchanged some libraries like the OpenSSL library. We have integrated the 1.1.1 version now, and also the TLS standard has been changed. And these are also topics which are definitely security relevant. And then we have the support matrix, because, well, SEP Sesam is definitely one of the product with one of the biggest support matrix at all. And we have a lot of agents, support a lot of databases and applications, and all these kind of vendors and applications are updated, have new releases all the time. So we always have to adapt our support matrix, do some regression testing of the agents, and also with our new version Jaglion, we have updated the support matrix. We will talk about this later on. Yeah, and bug fixes, a lot of bug fixes in there, but I will not talk about single specific bug fixes. It's a whole bunch, and definitely it's worth to do an update because of that. Yeah, move on. So let's talk about the highlights and the benefits. You know, on one side, we have our technicians and what we are implementing, what we have new as a technical feature. And on the other hand, we have to talk about what are the benefits for the customer, what can I use this new feature for. And so I would like to talk a little bit about technical and sales perspective. And this is very easy for new functionality, like supporting Nutanix AHV. You know, this is kind of an entry into the hyper-converged market. And at least from our European perspective, Nutanix is kind of a market leader for the hyper-converged topic and market. And we have a lot of customers introducing Nutanix into their data center, and therefore asking for supporting this hypervisor, and because they would like to keep their backup software and not to exchange it just because we do not support their complete environment. So we have started to make a cooperation, a alliance agreement with Nutanix, doing some marketing stuff together and so on, because we have now the Nutanix AHV ready, integration, certification. It's finalized, and it's only a matter of days that we will be visible on the Nutanix homepage. Yeah, and this is our 10th hypervisor we support, Nutanix AHV. And with almost all our hypervisors, we support the full stack of features for this hypervisor regarding backup and restore, because we support the change block tracking, so we can do a very efficient incremental backup. We support the mounting of virtual disks, which provides the functionality to do a single file restore of these virtual machines. So this helps if you set up a concept almost completely agentless. If it's only file and path backup, then it's definitely completely agentless. You only need an agent if it comes to database backup or any kind of groupware backup and so on. So this is kind of our backup strategy. Yeah, then we have a lot of topics in the web restore assistant, and that's kind of a journey going from Java to the browser-based technology. And we already had a restore wizard of our WebUI, and we have enhanced it by the restore possibility for now much more applications and databases. You can see the list: Domino, Microsoft SQL Server, Exchange, GroupWise, Nutanix, IMAP, NDMP. There's much more now in this web restore assistant. I will show you this in a live demonstration in a second. Yeah, and then our integrated deduplication, the SI3 NG as we call it. It's the new generation or the next generation, and it's completely reworked. And the algorithm, the core of this component is still the same, because the deduplication algorithm, it's patented by us. We have the patents. It's invented by us. And it was already very efficient because it works in memory with variable block size and so on. So it was already very efficient, and we have not really changed the algorithm, but we have changed the way how this component uses all the hardware resources like CPU and RAM, how the purge process, the garbage collection works, and so in the end, this results in a dramatic performance improve. And this improvement is not only for the backup, it's also for the backup, 20 to 30% for backup, of course, yes, but it's much more relevant for reading from this deduplication store, and the read performance has increased dramatically. So if you migrate data from the dedub store and the data has to be rehydrated, and you migrate to tape for compliance reasons or scenarios like this, that's much faster. And also for the restore process, you need to read from this dedub store. And so you can set up new concepts now. That's a real benefit, that in the past it was sometimes a little bit better to have a native data store as a staging area and then migrate to the dedub store and these kind of staging concepts. Now you can definitely use this dedub storage as your primary backup target. You can write to it, you can read from it, you can migrate from it, and it's almost as fast as a native data store. These are the figures we got from our benchmarking testing. And we have also introduced a new functionality, the direct to S3 functionality. In the past, we already had an S3 interface, but this required a local dedub storage, and then it replicated the data in the background, kind of transparent to the user, to the S3 bucket. And now we can write the backup data directly to S3 without the need of a local storage. So locally on the backup server, we have only some kind of metadata, of course, but no backup data will be stored locally. So the handling is almost identical. You don't see the difference in our GUI when you configure it. If it's a local SI3 NG data store or if it's a S3 data store, it's absolutely identical, and you can set up a direct backup to S3. You can migrate from S3 to somewhere else. You can replicate even from a local SI3 NG to S3. You can even replicate from one S3 target to another S3 target to set up kind of multi-cloud concepts. So this is all possible, and source-side dedupe and all this kind of functionality we have available with our integrated software Deduplication. Then we have the tape performance, and I will mention this at the performance slide in a second. And you know, tape is not always the hottest topic in the backup world, but since ransom virus is pretty active, this definitely is the best air gap you can have to be protected against ransomware. And we have implemented a lot of stuff to make our tape performance better. So also all the existing customers who are using tape backup and restore will feel this performance. Yeah, then we have introduced the functionality to delete backups on tape. And in fact, it was already possible to delete backups from disk storage, no problem. Just alter the end of life retention policy and then purge your disk storage, and then the save sets will be removed. That's fairly easy. But deleting data from tape is more painful, because you cannot really delete it. Otherwise, you have to overwrite the complete tape and so on. What we have done is that we delete the backups only from the backup server database, which means that the backup software does not have access anymore to these backups. They are still existing on tape, of course, but the backup software does not have access to it. And this is definitely enough to be full GDPR compliant. And this is especially in Europe, a very important topic, that you are GDPR compliant. And this functionality helps to be compliant for the customers. Then we have a mighty engine integrated for detection of new virtual machines and even new databases. So in our last version, we already had this little engine to find new VMware virtual machines. And now we have enhanced this functionality for all our hypervisors, and even more, that we can find new databases, like a new Microsoft SQL database. And based on rules, on some policies, you can specify these new virtual machines will be integrated into the backup concept. There will be created some task, and the task will be in a task group, and the task group already in a predefined schedule. And so this helps to make sure that you will never forget to integrate new virtual machines or new databases into your backup concept. Regarding the authentication concept, we have also done some significant changes. We have introduced a super user, and this is the only one, the almighty super user. There can be only one super user, and he has all the rights. He can see all and everything, and especially only the super user has the right to create new users, to grant permission, to restrict permission, and so on. So this is now for just one user. In the past, we had the kind of administrator, and one administrator was allowed to do all and everything, even creating new administrators. And this one can create new administrators, and then you have this kind of increase and inflation of administration accounts. And this is now no longer possible. You have just one super user who has this kind of permission. Yeah, then we have different roles, and we have, as a predefined user group, now introduced the backup user. And this is essentially the same as the restore user, as the restore role, but enhanced by some backup functionality for an immediate start or restarting backups. Yeah, and then some new functionalities regarding the way how you establish a connection, how you log in. You could provide a password, and as an alternative, you can also provide a certificate and could set up a certificate-based login. This kind of authentication that's now also integrated. Yeah, and then the dialog box manage virtual machine, which I will show you in the live demo in a second. Yeah, thanks, Lucas. Show the whole slide, click through. Okay, thank you. I was talking about performance already a little bit. The tape performance I have already talked about, and internally you can imagine that we have done some stuff like introducing asynchronous tape read ahead buffers. This helps to increase through parallelization of reading from tapes and so on. We have increased the purge performance. This essentially is by optimizing our SQL commands, how we delete data from our database. Yeah, you can imagine if you have a customer who has about 50,000 backups per day, then you have to also delete about 50,000 backups and data sets from the database. And if one delete command takes about 5 seconds, then you can easily calculate that it would take more than 24 hours to delete all these data sets and backup tasks. So we have really optimized these SQL commands, and now it's fairly easy to cope in more complex environments and with even hundreds of thousands of backups a day. And this could be the case if you have complex Oracle and HANA environments, because they have so much and so often this kind of backup task for the log files, maybe every 10 minutes or 15 minutes. And so this can be quite often. Yeah. If you have an HPE store once as a backup target, we have also optimized the restore in terms of amount of open connections we have open in parallel. We have optimized migrations also with these kind of buffers and SQL commands and so on. And as I guess that almost every customer is using migration, every customer will feel this performance improvement. And also with the mounting, creating this VFS, the virtual file system, especially with VMware, this is definitely now and in most of the cases significantly faster. And also regarding performance, I have talked about the integrated deduplication. We have improved our SI3 new generation. So there's a lot of performance optimization in this version. Yeah, some more features. Little bit of a collection over here. If you have other hypervisors in place, I mean VMware is kind of a market leader, but there are definitely other hypervisors out there, especially if you have an open source approach for your data center, you might have the Red Hat Virtualization. We support now the change block tracking, so you can do a very effective incremental backup and save storage, save bandwidth, and so on. We have rebased our incremental backup of Hyper-V to the RCT. That's the term how Microsoft names the change block tracking. Everybody calls it change block tracking except Microsoft. They call it resilient change tracking. And now we have rebased our incremental backup on this official formal Microsoft API. We have introduced a new task type for the Oracle Linux Virtualization Manager, which is the hypervisor from Oracle, of course, and this is now fully supported in our software with a separate task type. And some minor features, Citrix, you can now exclude disks for the backup, for the restore. It's nothing special, but if you are a Citrix hypervisor user, this is definitely a cool functionality now for you. Regarding the usability, we have enhanced our RESTful API. If you are not using our graphical user interfaces, you can use the REST API to program and automate all and everything. It was already possible in the past with the API version 1 to extract data from the backup environment, to display this kind of data, like the list of results and the restores and backups, all the results of your backup tasks. You can display it in system management tools like CheckMK or Nagios and others which are out there at the market. That was already possible. But now with the new version 2 of the RESTful API, it is also possible to program a lot of configuration. You can configure a data store, you can create users, you can grant permissions and so on. So this is now all part of the enhanced RESTful API. Yeah, a lot of new options regarding the GUI and the WebUI. I will show you in the live demo. And also the vCenter is now visible in our dialog box. When you create a backup task for VMware virtual machines, the virtual machines are displayed in the same vCenter structure according to the vApps and resource pools and so on. What you have created in the vCenter, it's now visible in the backup software as well. For MSPs, we have some important functionalities like that we can have different ACLs, different permissions for every virtual machine. We have the backup role, which is important for MSPs, especially to grant their customers the functionality to restart their own backups. And some new reports for the MSP for the charging as well. And last but not least, we have a new possibility for a new database for the backup server. If you have the backup server running on Windows, in the past it was only based on SQLite, and now you have a new choice. It's Postgres, and this is also a matter because of we have some very huge and customers with high complexity of environment. It has turned out that SQLite does not fully scale to this kind of complexity, and therefore we have decided to move to the Postgres database now as an option on Windows. It's now optional if you install, and you can, if you're an existing customer, you can continue to use SQLite. That's not a problem. But maybe in the future, Postgres might be the only database we support, but this will only be the case if we have some sort of transition process, automatic transition process from SQLite to the Postgres database. So it's absolutely comfortable for the user to update from one database to the other one. Should be easy. Yeah, then we have some support for Linux BAS files. This is little Linux functionality for Linux system files that are very small, but in fact they are like thin provisioned, very, very big, but only take a little bit of space. And in the past, when we restored this kind of files, they were restored in the big size, and now they are restored as sparse files again, so that you can make sure that your system, your file system, where you have your operating system, will not be completely crowded with these kind of inflated sparse files. And with HPE Cloud Volumes, this was kind of a certification with HPE, which might be significant for HPE Store 1's users. yeah, regarding the support matrix, I've talked about this a little bit. Domino users are happy that we now support Domino 12. Red Hat Virtualization 4.4 is important because that's the version including the change block tracking. Debian 11 as a important Linux version, also for backup servers, is also supported. This is the security topics I have talked about already, which is relevant in the background for all kind of authentication processes, encryption processes, and so communication processes and so on. And this one I personally think is very important because we provide our packages, our installable packages on the ARM hardware architecture. You know that we already support a lot of hardware architectures, not only Intel, but also IBM Power and so on. And now we also support the ARM technology. And this is important if you have kind of UAV hardware like a Taishan server or something like that. And we do not have only the client package, we also have the RDS and server package available on ARM. So you can use these kinds of servers also as backup server. And I think that there are not much backup software out there at the market who support their backup software on this hardware architecture.
So before we jump into a demo, Klaus, there's a couple questions that I think that we should ask. One of the questions came up is 4.4.3. What is the plan and how long will 4.4.3 be supported?
Well, normally we say that we always support 2 versions at a time. Yeah, so I know that other vendors have different regulations in their companies that they always want to have their complete installed base be updated to the latest version. We always support 2 versions, that's for sure.
So with that, Klaus, nothing has changed for us. For example, a customer who is running the previous version, 4.4.3,
no problem.
Now 5.0 is out, 4.4.3 will continue to be supported until we potentially go to the next release, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, so, for you customers out there who today are running 4.4.3, you will continue to receive the support. Of course, the new features in 5.0, that's one of the reasons why to upgrade, but I can understand, but I wanted to make sure that everyone on today understands that 4.4.3 is not going to be end of life or end of support for some time in the future. If you look over the past 4 years, we've done a major release almost every year. And this, of course, is almost a roll up and a bigger release, but we're still supporting 4.4.3. Another question, Klaus, along that support line. I know that we've got an extensive wiki and it's listed there on the slide. Thank you, Lucas, for including that from a support matrix. What is the plan for Mac as a client? Are Macs still supported as a client in 5.0?
To be honest, currently no. Well, we have made the experience that most of the Mac users are absolutely happy with their time machine on the Mac, and therefore there was, at least from a European perspective, not much request for a Mac client.
Okay, so if you're currently got a Mac client today and you're running 4.4.3, it would be advised to stay there if that was important for that client to be backed up. Is that correct?
I mean, we have a Mac client. It's not up to date, definitely. But as we have the philosophy to always be compatible with the old clients with the latest version of our backup software, you can still use this old Mac client with the Jaglion version of the backup server. That's possible.
Okay,
what about, Klaus, if the customer hasn't upgraded to the newest version, is sticking on 4.4.3, are they still able to use that old Mac client? on 4.4.3.
Yes, nothing has changed for this combination.
Okay.
Thank you, Lucas. Thank you, Klaus. And then another question was regarding the SLES environments. So, customer running SLES 11. Of course, I know that SLES 11 support is going away, but it's sort of a difficult thing. I guess what is the best thing that you would recommend if a client is today running SLES 11 as a backup server? Klaus, what would you recommend?
Yeah, I know that this is always a question, and I know that some customers have a little bit of a trouble with it. But if you think back, SLES 11 is definitely not the latest version of SUSE. We have SLES 12, we have SLES 15, and so on. And we try to keep the older versions as long as possible. But as soon as the operating systems vendor stops support for this version, then we are kind of forced to also stop the support. And I guess SLES 11 is no longer supported by SUSE. So therefore we have to move away from it, and then the customers have to update. I mean, for sake of support from SUSE, they have to update anyway, I think.
Okay, thank you very much. So Rick, I just saw that latest question come through from you. We'll get that handled. Especially from Germany, the answer is what it is. So Klaus, there's a question that's a little difficulty in the Mac side, but we'll get that answered. Another question came up was how do you, and I answered it in chat, guys, but how do you get upgraded if you want to? And you can see that on the slide there, support@sepusa.com. That will submit a ticket automatically, and we'll get that scheduled for you. You can also reach out to me directly. You can reach out to sales, or you can reach out to your channel partner that you're working with. They can also help you. We have a lot of technical resellers. Another question that came up, Klaus, and it's more of a sales question. Can we change our licensing structure? And the answer is yes. So this isn't a sales presentation today, but if over the past few years you haven't heard of our latest pricing models, whether it's a virtualization model, whether it's a perpetual model, or whether it's a volume model, please just reach out to Lucas and myself or your partner, and we'll get you look at what it would take to change from a current license to a new one, potentially offering you some cost savings with some features that are included in some of the volume licensing. So Klaus, thank you for the presentation. I guess we can move into the demonstration now. And keep your questions coming, folks, because we'll answer the questions again at the end. Thank you.
Yeah, just a remark from my side while I try to switch to my screen. For this licensing topic, if you are in the classic licensing and you start to increase the complexity of your environment, like introducing deduplication, introducing BSR and NDMP and whatever, or more databases, more different databases, more virtual machines. If you increase your environment and the complexity, then it very often could make sense to change to the volume licensing, and then really try to get into contact with my colleagues and they will help you. So can you see my screen?
We can.
Perfect.
I see the PowerPoint that you have.
You see the PowerPoint presentation. Yeah. Now I'm going to stop this one because I have prepared, of course, for the live demonstration. First of all, our graphical user interface might be familiar for the most of you, but I would like to start with the WebUI. And if you have not yet used the WebUI, even if it has been present in the last version Beefalo already, you should know it, because now it's really a cool tool for restore, and you can see that it's enhanced by a lot of task types. There is now Nutanix, of course, there's GroupWise, Domino, SQL Server, Exchange, yeah, that's all new. And if you go down the path for, just as an example, Domino, and I just want to show you that it's always the same look and feel, no matter which task type you select, which application you select. We have a Domino server 10 on Windows over here. Yeah, click on next. You see the available task over here. For this task, we have 2 safe sets, 2 fulls on this dedup media pool. We have here a task with some incremental and full on this dedup media pool. And you can always just select one of these safe sets, click on next, and then you can navigate through the installation directory of your Domino server. In this case, you can select mailboxes, single mailboxes over here, and you could restore these mailboxes, or you could restore the nodes.ini file, which is pretty important for Domino environments. Click on next. Then where would you like to restore these files to? Choose a server. The Domino server is pre-selected already. Choose a restore path. Just go and select one of the restore paths. It's fairly easy to go there. Yeah, I will not do it anyway, just to show you how we can choose the path. Some options if you want to keep the original tree structure, or if the item should be put flat in the selected target directory. Yeah, and if you go with the SQL server, it's pretty much the same. Yeah? Select your SQL server, click on next. Here are the backups and the available safe sets. Select these safe sets from the past, go to next, and then you can drill down. And this was just one database of a Microsoft SQL Server instance, but you could also select this one. This is a all backup. Let's go with this all backup. And then we might have a choice. Yeah, now we have all the databases, and during the restore, you could select the database you would like to restore, and then you click on next. The Microsoft SQL Server is pre-selected, but you can select another one if you would like to. Select the restore path, and here you have all the options associated with the Microsoft SQL Server restore. So this is the look and feel for all these different task types. What is also new is the workflow, that we have this advanced view, which is kind of an expert view, I would say, with additional options for some of these task types, and especially for the hypervisors. We have here the possibility for a single file restore, the instant recovery, and so on. And this is now new, that we also have the single file restore included in this web UI restore assistant. Yeah, you can fairly easy go down, and you see, you choose your vCenter, you select a virtual machine. These are only the virtual machines where we have backups available for restore. Yeah, click on next, and then here are the tasks and the safe sets. It's always the same look and feel. Yeah, single file restore, click on next. Now, where would we like to mount to? We can mount to the DemoFix3, which is our backup server, and we keep all other defaults, and then we mount at the backup server. Yeah, and you see it already. It's pretty intuitive. You don't have to read a lot of wiki pages or manual or whatever. You can just drill down and go ahead, and now you have the Windows virtual disk of this virtual machine being mounted. And it's kind of interesting, because this Windows virtual disk is mounted at the backup server, and the backup server is a Linux machine. So the mount is also possible cross-platform. I think this is also could also be a huge benefit, just as a side remark. And also for Nutanix, our new functionality, of course, this is the same look and feel. Our Prism host, the management host of the Nutanix environment. Click on next, and it's always the same. Yeah, single file restore, or just restore a complete virtual machine under a new name, and so on. That's all possible. Yeah, we have also new functionality in our web UI with the dashboard, and I just click on the data stores. this is a view you could be familiar with the utilization. These are the disk storage, and now you can select these disk storages and click on dependencies. And this dependency is going to show you the data stores. Yeah, data store status. Okay, these are the status. So it takes a little bit of a time. Let's select this one, apply the filter. So, well, just looking for this graph in the dependencies. Select the media pools. No, it's not visible over here. Well, I'm missing kind of a graph currently. Just thinking what I did wrong. Let me show you in the meantime the backup functionality. Here are the backups. This view should be familiar to you already. And with these 3 dots, you have new functionality available. What is my, maybe it's the wrong account I'm logged in, to be able to start the backups. Hello. Go back 1 week. So I'm missing the backup functionality, to be honest. I guess I'm not the right user over here. So I will go and check the user, and this is the right possibility to show you the authentication. And if I go to configuration, permission management, here you can see that we have this new super user, and there's only one super user in an environment. And this super user can create new users. Oh, the dialog box is always on the wrong monitor. And now here you have the backup user available. And with this type of user, you have the possibility to restart backups and immediately start backups. And this helps if backups have failed because of network error, something was not available, and then you can restart the backups. With the operator, you can only watch and see everything. And with a restore user, you can only do restores, and together with the authorization, you can make sure that the restore user can only restore its own data. And this will be restricted or granted if you go to the topology. You know that normally you restrict or grant permissions on the top of a tree. There is a permission tab, and in this tab you see that we have backup users and restore users. They are all denied per default, and you could add new users from the list, and then these users should be able to do act as an operator or act as a restore user, depending on what their role is. Yeah, if we select one, that's what I wanted to show you already, is that if I select one, okay, then this one has the allow. So for the administrator and operators, normally the default is allow for all and everything. You can restrict it, and for the backup users and the restore users, it's all denied, and you have specifically add these users to allow access to specific trees, or it's inherited, it's propagated down to the servers. You can have this server and change the inheritance over here. when you could add other users over here. Yeah, so that's how the authorization is going to work in this graphical user interface. I wanted to show you the REST API. That was something I've talked about before. And the REST API, it's now version 2. You see it has been enhanced. It's now much more than 400 pages. And if you just search for Jaglion, you can see that all the endpoints of this REST API programming guide are listed or explained, described pretty well with all their parameters and options. This is the minimum required role. So herefore you need to be the super user for this endpoint, and this function is available since Jaglion. So it's all described for every endpoint available. Here you can see this one, the check one, does not need specific permissions, and it is available since Beefalo as well. So if you need to program with a REST API, you will find all the necessary information from here. I've talked a lot about the deduplication, the new deduplication. If we go on data stores, you see here the overview of the data stores. And if I select new data store, well, the dialog box is always on the wrong monitor. Then you have now an additional option in this drop-down menu. There's the already existing SI3 of the Beefalo version. And this one, the new generation, now the revised deduplication store. And you can just create a new one, and you can set up replication between both types. This is necessary if you would like to transition from the old deduplication to the new deduplication. Yeah, if you have only, let's say, retention policy of 2 or 3 months, then you just set up a new one and use it as a backup target for all your backup tasks, and let the old one just expire, and then after 3 months you can delete it, and all your new backups are in the new data store. That's an easy case. If you have backups in your old data storage, which have retention times of 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, depending on your compliance regulations, then it's also possible to replicate the data from the old dedub store to the new one. Could be the case that you need a little bit of additional storage depending on your deduplication ratios and so on, to move the data from one dedub store to the next one. Yeah, but also source-side database available, replication, and so on. The only thing which is coming a little bit later is the encryption of the new data store. So otherwise, it's pretty complete. And regarding the S3, there is this tab for the S3 credentials. And if you specify your S3 bucket over here, then it acts like a standard data store in our graphical user interface. But if you write backup data to this one where you have provided the S3 bucket, and oh, I have one here. I have one here. This one I have provided some S3 data over here. And this is a Wasabi S3 storage. And if I back up to this data store, then the data will automatically be deduplicated in memory and transferred to the Wasabi S3 public cloud. That's working pretty smooth. And I think from a GUI usability standpoint, completely transparent. For the managed VM tasks, that's something I have talked about, is over here. You know, for VMware, if you have to create a backup task for just one single virtual machine, you have the vCenter here. You click on new backup task, then you have this little arrow with a client browser, and here is our VMware system. You see that there are the virtual machines, and you can exclude virtual disks and so on. And here you can easily configure a backup task for just one virtual machine. If you need to create hundreds of backup tasks for hundreds of virtual machines at the same time, you have to use the right-click Manage VM task. And with this dialog box, you can see that we have in our VMware environment 9 virtual machines without any backup tasks, so they are not protected. We have virtual machines 6 with backup tasks, and no backup tasks without an existing virtual machine. This could also be the case if you had a backup task for a test VM and this is not longer existing. And then you could also remove all these leftover backup tasks with just one click. And with just one click, you could say, for these virtual machines, for these 9 virtual machines, I would like to create a backup task in the backup task group, databases, or whatever you have available in this one. There, I would just set this missing virtual machines and create the backup task with just one click on apply. You can filter this one by the operating system. Yeah, or maybe only the Windows machines. Now it's reduced according to the filter. And with this dialog box, it's fairly easy to manage a complete virtual environment and create with one click hundreds of backup tasks in the respective task group, which is in the right schedule. And you can also detect new virtual machines. This is done via this engine and this policy-based algorithm. You can create specific commands and detect virtual machines by regular expressions or by meta text from the virtual machine and so on. And then you can specify on which task group this task should be created, or if you should ignore this virtual machine and so on. This is just a little example how this mighty engine works.
So
yeah,
Klaus, I just wanted to, before we move on, there was one question that I want to make sure that we're getting before we move on too far. Plus, we've, almost exceeded the time slightly. So I want to be aware of everyone's schedule. But the question, Klaus, was, does the cross-platform mounting work the other way? If you have a Windows backup server and you want to restore single files from a Linux backup, does that work as well?
It works as well. You need to be prepared to it because there are some basic requirements. And for my direction, I have mounted on a Linux what did I do? No, if you do it the other way around, mounting Linux on Windows, then you have to make sure that there is an NFS daemon running on your Windows machine so that you are able to mount this NFS file system then, for instance.
Cool. And I'm going to take a moment to also let all the users know that any type of question like that you have like this, or you need some assistance, if you emailed support, we'll get you an answer back, a technical response and how, and that does not consume any of your incidents or support questions. Email support is included as part of your support project package. So if you have some of these little technical questions that you don't, want to get on the phone with an engineer, but you just want to say, hey, is it possible? We just feel free and email the support. So Klaus, how much more of a demonstration do you have here to show us today? Because I want to make sure the audience is aware that we probably have another 10 minutes to go.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to show where you can get information from, and it's very important to know that In our wiki, we have also all the new documentation. If you scroll down, you have the Nutanix description over here, just as an example. That's pretty new. And as usual, we have described it in detail with hard copies of dialog boxes and so on. And also here are the release notes, and these are the release notes for the new version. And here you can find every functionality which is new. There are some other functionalities also mentioned here. We have this sparse file support and so on, and we also have the right links into the wiki then from here. And here are the descriptions how we support the sparse files, for instance. So this is just how to get all the information.
Thank you, Klaus. That was awesome. Lucas, if you go back to the last slide of our presentation, that would be wonderful. One last technical question for you, Klaus. We're now 5.0. And of course, you mentioned that we have a very extensive support matrix, probably the most extensive support matrix in the marketplace. How are our certifications with 5.0 from 4.3? Are our certifications all intact? I'm running Oracle today. Does that affect us in any way?
Yeah, to be honest, this is one of the biggest topic you always have if you change a major version number, because you have to recertify, and the most important certifications we have are the SAP certifications, and we really have recertified all our certifications, especially the SAP ones for HANA on different platforms, different hypervisor, and that's all in place.
Awesome. That's always good news. Some, folks, when a new release come out, I think we've all been in the software business long enough that, hey, let's give it some time. Let's see if the new release. I'm pretty proud of the beta testing that we did with this release. There's a few of you who have helped with that. As we get further along, keep in mind that as as we talk and there's another release down the road, you can be part of that early upgrade and peak as well. I think a couple things that we've covered here on this slide, on this presentation today, and I want to recapture. You can see that the architecture has been improved quite a bit. When it comes to our WebUI, that has been an ongoing improvement. When customers see it for the first time, they're, hey, when did that happen? And this is exciting. As you look at virtualization and our support for virtualization, having 8 hypervisors, 10 hypervisors supported, I would say that most customers do not have multiple hypervisors. They may have 1, 2, and maybe 1 in test. The important part about that is it's the same look and feel. So as your environment changes, keep in mind that you don't necessarily need to get rid of your backup product. We support these other hypervisors to enable you to make those changes of what works best for your environment. You may be 100% VMware shop, and the good news is now we can look at all those new VMs that are constantly being added and get those added to the backups as well. But more importantly, as you look at different virtualizations or different platforms like Nutanix, this is where we're going. Oh, John just asked a great question. In the future, are we moving more towards our WebUI instead of everything Java?
Yes, definitely. And I know that we have already increase the development workers, especially for this topic, to move faster with this topic. It's not an easy one. It's some effort, of course, but that's definitely the goal.
Thank you. So, with that being said, guys, performance, architecture, virtualization, getting that one view, improvements to our dedupe. There was the question regarding the deduplication. Klaus, you answered it, but I would just want to be very clear. If your retention level of your data in the old data store enables you to simply expire those retention levels and set up the new data store, that is what we're recommending. If your retention levels of your data store does not enable that, then we need to look at a migration, and we can assist with that. It's not complex. It's not too overwhelming. And the guys have already been doing it for quite some time in Germany for the larger customers who cannot expire their retention. So 2 ways to accomplish it, sort of a coexisting and a migration at the same time. So hopefully that answered everyone. it looks like I just have that one question that we answered from Dan that I didn't answer in the words. But the cross mounting platform works. There's just some details there. So everyone, thank you today. I will wish you a good evening, Klaus, in Germany. Please pass
Thank
along
you.
to the team. And then
one last question that just popped up there for you, Klaus. Sorry to keep you. Is there any heads up issues upgrading on 4.4.3 to 5.0? So is there anything that somebody should be aware of right now, bug fixing or bug issues or anything upgrading to 5.0? Or is
I
that
would
all
say
documented on the wiki there?
it's definitely documented. So if you go to the release notes, there is the section with the known issues. You should definitely have a look at this. If there is something that might hit you, if there's a known issue in the Citrix area and you have VMware in place, then it doesn't bother you. Yeah, so you have to have a look at the known issues. One I have already told you that the encryption is not yet supported with the new deduplication. So if you rely on encryption because you are from the public sector and you have specific regulations to encrypt all and everything, then you should wait a little bit until we get out the next version, the next release, and then we have the encryption also in place. We are working on it.
Very, very good. That's a great answer. And so for everyone to remind, there's a couple things. We do have a YouTube channel and our wiki on the release notes. We're very proud of how far we've come with our documentation. The wiki is where everything is and the updates are there. So I want to thank everyone for their time today, and additional questions, we can get on the phone one-on-one. And if you want to take a deep dive, we can schedule some one-on-one deep dive conversation as well. So thank you all. Thank you, Klaus.
Thank you, everybody. It was a pleasure to me.
Thank you, guys. And I will be sure to make sure that everyone has a recording of today's webinar, as well as the PowerPoint presentation that Klaus had went over, and make sure that we have some links sent out. So that way, Eric, you can see the known issues on our wiki page and so on. But again, thank you everyone for joining. Klaus, you have a wonderful evening, and everybody have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, guys.
Perfect.
Bye-bye now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.